Hey there, Pre-AP. We just finished our unit on biochemistry, and now we're heading into our Unit 3, bioenergetics. So please have your outline, your photosynthesis 3.1 outline, as well as a pen and a highlighter or a pencil, because we're going to annotate these notes. The first video is going to be on Part 1 only, because Part 1 is significantly got a little bit more information than Part 2 and Part 3, so Part 2 and 3 will be a separate video. So let's get started. Alright, so out beside where it says photosynthesis, we're going to be using the color green a lot with photosynthesis because plants are green. Out beside where it says photosynthesis 3.1 Part 1, put out there that plants, algae, and some bacteria. These are the things that go through photosynthesis. Plants, number 1. Algae. Algae's that kind of gross green film that covers up the lake in the summertime. And you think, ew, the water's gross. Well, it's just algae. That's their home. They go through photosynthesis. And to just briefly kind of go over what you learned in 7th grade, photosynthesis, how plants, along with algae and some bacteria, make their own food. But that's not the whole story we're going to find out. Alright, so your chloroplast structure. Please go down to where it is Roman numeral 4. We will go back to Roman numerals 1 through 3 in just a moment. I'm going to draw a chloroplast with you because this guy, he looks really complicated. Well, let's draw our own chloroplast, shall we? Let's draw our own. So out beside where it says chloroplast structure, kind of draw you a little oval. And remember, we kind of talked about this before. Go ahead and make you some stacks of green pancakes. Just a couple of few. Now, we need to label this. So, make sure that you remember this is a chloroplast. Now, the first thing we want to label is a thylakoid. That is an individual green pancake. Now, we have something called a grana. So please put a big old bracket around that whole stack of pancakes. That is called a grana, or some people like to call it a grana, if you're fancy. So one pancake, remember these are green little pancakes. One green pancake is a thylakoid, a stack of green pancakes is a grana, or grana. And then this empty space in between here, it actually has a name. It is called the stroma. Alright, so that's your chloroplast structure. Now let's highlight. So thylakoid, those are the little green discs. We call them pancakes. That contains the pigment chlorophyll, so please highlight that. Then the number 1 under thylakoid, this is very important. Please highlight. It's the site of the light reaction of photosynthesis. And also highlight underneath their primary purpose is to make ATP and NADPH. Those are energy molecules. We'll get more in depth in that in a minute, but just to get your brain thinking. Grana, just a stack of thylakoids, or if you want to put in like little quotation mark, pancakes. For some reason, pancakes always fit as a good example. And then stroma, please highlight, it's the watery space surrounding the thylakoids. Highlight that number 1. It's the site of the light-independent reaction, or Calvin cycle. Its primary purpose is to use ATP. So underline use very twice. Under thylakoid, where that's that little A, and it says make ATP, go ahead and underline it twice. So this is thylakoid. This is stroma. Because it's very different to make something than to use something. You can make pancakes, but it's very different to make pancakes and to use pancakes as an energy source. Because your tummy's grumbling and it's breakfast time. Alright, so there's our pretty thylakoid. Much better than that picture. So this is just a picture showing you that you have a leaf. Inside those leaves are cells, plant cells. And inside those plant cells, there are little bitty green structures called chloroplasts. Those are in the mesothelal cells of plants. Those mesophyll cells, they can contain a lot of chloroplasts. And this is what a chloroplast looks like under the microscope. He looks kind of sad. But he's very important. He's not ever sad. He's always making food, so he's happy. Alright, stroma. You drew a picture of this today. We're going to go over stroma tomorrow. Don't worry. Pardon me, not stroma, stomata. Oh my goodness. We are back to Roman numeral 1. So stay with me. I'm keeping you on your toes tonight. This is Roman numeral 1. Autotrophs. Remember the prefix auto. We have had that in our prefix-suffix game lately. Auto. What does the prefix auto mean? That's right! Auto means self. Troph means feeder. So please highlight that organisms that can produce or make their own food. Auto, look, it's right there. Auto means self. Troph means feeding or feeder. So self-feeders, these are things like we said, like plants. So if you want to put you out an example under there just to keep yourself mentally sharp. Autotrophs are things like plants. Because plants are what color, guys? That's right, they're green. But let's go to the flip-flop of that. Well, here we go. The autotrophs are algae. Those are phytoplankton. Those are little bitty squiggly guys that live in the water. They're green, so they go through photosynthesis. Like we said, bacteria at the beginning. There we go. Heterotrophs. Here's the flip-flop. Hetero. Hetero means different. Troph means feeding. Please highlight that this is an animal that consumes other organisms. Please put a star underneath this that says do not make own food. Heterotrophs do not make their own food. They have to go find their own food. We're heterotrophs. Now, I know that you can make a sandwich. I know that you can put cheese and meat and bread on a sandwich and go, but I made a sandwich, Miss Miner. No. You did not physically make that pig and turn it into ham to go on your sandwich. You didn't conjure up the cheese from that milk from that cow. You didn't make that. You bought it at the grocery store and brought it home and you assembled. Assemble and making from scratch, like photosynthesis, is two totally different things. So please put that out there. Do not make your own food. The example for this one, just go ahead, put you out there. Humans, we're heterotrophs. We don't make our own food. We can make a sandwich, but we can't make our own food like plants do. We can't go through photosynthesis. We're not fancy like that, guys. Sorry. Other heterotrophs are things like fungus. If you've ever seen those white mushrooms growing up in your yard and you kick them, they're not a plant. Fungus, things like mushrooms, they're not plants. They're actually considered to be an animal, which is, I know that's a shock. You're like, ooh, that's weird. It is, because it doesn't look like a fuzzy animal. but we do classify it as one, and we'll get to that whenever we start that unit. Alright, chemiosmosis. I know we're jumping all over the place. I know we are. But like I said, I'm keeping you on your toes tonight. So, please go. You actually have this. I actually wrote it on your paper. It's underneath part 3 of photosynthesis. So flip over there, and it says 3 steps. And please write down those 3 steps. So if you want to pause the video and write down those 3 steps, please do so. You may do that now. So the steps to chemiosmosis. Chemio means chemical. Osmosis means, if you remember from cell unit, movement of water. So we're chemicals moving through water. So, first step, there's 3 steps. You got to isolate some protons. Remember what charge that protons are. Remember, those are positive. And you want to pack these into a confined space. I just want to get you kind of some basics here. Think about blowing up a balloon. So if you want to put out there air, or hold on, we'll put blowing up balloon. I don't know if I spelled balloon right, but it's okay. Balloon. That looks really wrong. I'm so sorry. I'm not a speller, guys. I'm just a scientist. Number 2, after you have packed those protons into confined space, like blowing up a balloon and it getting so huge, is all that air going to want to stay in there? No, it's not. It's going to want to leave because it's packed in there. It's crowded. It wants to go somewhere less crowded. So, after that, you actually make a concentration gradient. Ooh, let's draw our mountain man. This is our passive transport mountain man. He's going to actually go from a high place down the gradient to a low place. Remember, this takes no energy. Anybody? Mountain Man Steve coming back? So, you have put those proteins in a very confined space. A positive, a high concentration. There's a lot of protons in that space. It's at a high concentration. It's going to want to leave and go to a lower concentration, a less crowded space, and that's not going to take any energy. After you have confined those protons, you've built them up so big, and you've made this high concentration, you're going to want to release that energy. Remember, while you're packing those in there and making a concentration gradient, you have potential energy. Remember, that's the energy of position, the energy of sitting still. Once you have so much potential energy, that balloon's going to want to pop or release all that chemical energy, that potential energy, and turn it into kinetic energy, which is going to be using kinetic energy to power ATP synthase. Remember ACE, that's an enzyme. We're going to talk about this more. Don't think, oh my goodness, I have to know this all by tomorrow. No, you don't. You just have to have some background knowledge that we can use tomorrow. So your example for number 3 is going to be releasing balloon full of air. This is going to make more sense whenever we go through the demonstration. So chemiosmosis, we're moving chemicals through water. We isolate protons, we blow up that balloon. Then we make a concentration gradient, which means that we pack that balloon so full of protons, it's about to bust. It's stored a lot of potential energy in that balloon. And once we release that balloon full of air, that kinetic energy that is released is going to power an enzyme. So please keep that in mind. Alright, so we are back. We talked about chemiosmosis. It's very important. This is Roman numeral 5. We're going to talk about photosynthesis as kind of a light reaction here. So, photosynthesis as a chemical reaction. Please highlight. It starts by making sunlight energy and converting it into chemical energy. That chemical energy you're going to hear a lot about, ATP. I like to compare this to having a battery. You have batteries. Think about it. You have batteries that help you with all kinds of stuff. It's got a positive end. It's got a negative end. And that battery can power things. It can actually power the iPad I'm using. It can power your iPhone. Because we all know if your iPhone goes dead, a part of you just feels like it's just has gone missing. Something's died. Something's wrong. You're like, my phone doesn't work anymore. I know that's how you feel. Think about if you didn't have your phone charger. Oh my goodness. Ooh, that would be bad. Your phone would die, and then you wouldn't even be able to use it anymore. That would be devastating to you. If photosynthesis didn't have a battery, your battery is going to be your thylakoid. You're going to charge up a battery, that thylakoid, with sunlight. You're going to take sunlight energy from the good old sunshine, because he's full of good energy. We're going to use it to create chemical energy. That chemical energy is called, gets a name, ATP and NADPH. So the sunlight charges this battery called the thylakoid, and he's going to make sunlight energy into two forms of energy the plant cell can actually use, ATP and NADPH. Alright, please highlight where it says big letter B. Takes the chemical energy, we know those names are ATP and NADPH, and uses them, or uses that chemical energy to power the production of sugars. Ooh, we're making sugars. So after we have the sunlight that comes from the sunshine, this is just a summary, guys. Don't panic. We're going to heat up this thylakoid battery, and we're going to make chemical energy in the form of ATP and NADPH. Well, we've actually charged our battery. We've got some chemical energy. We can now be able to make some food. Sugar. That sugar gets a name. It's called glucose. Every form of plant is made up of glucose. That's their food. So we're going to use that thylakoid battery. We have made some energy with it, ATP and NADPH, and we're going to now take that energy we just made and we're going to make sugar. Ooh. Alright, please make sure that you highlight this guy. Please highlight the other big letter B. There's two of them. Please, please, please highlight this. It is 6 CO2. Remember, CO2 means carbon dioxide. Plus 6 H2O, 6 water molecules. Then you're going to get 1 out right here. These numbers are your coefficients. They tell you how many CO2s you're going to get, how many H2Os. This guy over here is just 1. This guy is glucose. Plus 6 oxygen, and then we're going to have some heat that is released. This is an exergonic reaction, so it's going to release heat. Alright, so formula. You will definitely have to know this formula. You can go ahead and start it. Alright, please highlight that this sugar, it's usually not consumed right away. Plants, remember, whenever they're not going to have sunlight every day. So most of the time that sugar is going to be stored as chemical energy for cellular respiration. They're not going to use it immediately. They're just kind of going to store it for a minute. And if they need to use it, then they're going to use it through cellular respiration. Please highlight that water splits, not CO2. That will come in handy later. Out beside where it says 2 processes involved in the conversion of sunlight energy to sugar. Please put yourself a bracket out there and put the word summary. This is just a summary of what's going to happen, just to kind of give you a preview to the movie. You're going to have 2 processes that happen. One is the light reaction. The second one, I like to give it the name of Calvin cycle, named after a man named Melvin Kelvin. Please also know, though, that the Calvin cycle has another name. So does the light reaction. Oh my goodness. The light reaction, we like to say, is the light dependent. Think about what the word dependent means. Dependent means that you need it. You do. So the light reaction, you depend on sunlight for it to happen. Calvin cycle, we say it's the other name for it is the light independent. Think about the word independent. If you're independent, you don't need it. You can be okay without it. It's like whenever you learn to drive, you will not depend on anyone to take you anywhere. You're going to be independent. You have a driver's license. You have a vehicle. You don't need them anymore, technically. So Calvin cycle, light independent, you do not need any sunlight. So for the summary of light dependent reaction, know the gist of it. Changes sunlight into ATP and NADPH. Usable chemical energy. Then the Calvin cycle, please highlight that you're going to make sugar using CO2, ATP, and NADPH. Light reaction, you're making some energy. Calvin cycle, you're using that energy to make you some sugar, some food. Alright, so please go down to F and G. F, please know that NADP plus is converted to NADPH by picking up 2 negative electrons, because later you're going to ask me why something changed. Just giving you a preview. And then G, ADP is phosphorylated. All that means is go ahead and put your little star beside there. All you do is you say ADP plus a P, because ADP is adenosine diphosphate. You just add a P. That's all phosphorylation means, is add a P, add a phosphorus. And it becomes ATP. That's all that means. Alright, so we are to Roman numeral 6. Alright, Roman numeral 6 is going to talk about your waves of light, and then it's going to talk about some chlorophyll. So, electromagnetic spectrum, please know that sunlight travels in waves of different wavelengths. This is why whenever you see a rainbow in the sky, this is why you see all those colors. This is your Roy G. Biv. So, please know that you red over here, this little guy. Please know it has the longest wavelength. And then blue light over here, kind of going into violet. It has the shortest wavelength. Think about wearing sunblock. And a spectrometer, it just measures those wavelengths. Alright, flip over to where it's talking about visible light, visible white light, Roy G. Biv. We got to talk about absorption and reflection. So, before we do that, look at big letter C, and please highlight that units of energy are called photons. Think about a photograph and the flash on your camera. Excuse me. So, absorption and reflection. Students get this really confused. Absorbed energy, absorbed light. Those are the colors that are usable. Please make yourself a note out beside there. Absorbed. You do not see these. You do not see these. Where it talks about reflection, it says reflection down there at the very bottom, big number 2, is the colors that are not usable. All that means for you is you see this color. Let's take, for example, that a couple of you are wearing a red shirt today. The color you see is the color that is being reflected, red. If you think about plants, plants are what color? They're leaves, green. The color you see, the color being reflected is green. The colors you don't see, the ones that are being absorbed, are all the other colors of the spectrum, like red, orange, yellow, blue, purple. The only one that you see is the one that is reflected. So absorption, reflection. Absorption, you don't see the colors. Reflection, you can. So again, chloroplast, green light, it's being reflected. That's why you can see it. Absorption. Let's go back. We're going to talk about some colors, some chlorophylls. So, please highlight that plants use reds and blues, not green. They don't use green. They reflect green. If you reflect a color, you don't really use it. You just see it to make it pretty. So please know that chlorophyll A is the main pigment. Chlorophyll B, its only function is to help chlorophyll A receive sunlight. Carotenoids, please know that these are accessory pigments to chlorophyll A. Please highlight that these are red, orange, and yellow pigments. Out beside there, put fall colors. Those are your fall colors of leaves. That's what makes your leaves turn. And then the last thing, photosystem. All a photosystem is, highlight a group of light-absorbing pigments in the thylakoid membrane. I like to think of those as solar panels. Solar panels help have electricity in your house or heat your house. Solar panels, that thylakoid, that one little bitty pancake, absorbs all that sunlight energy so that you can use it to make food. Alright, so that's it for part 1. Part 2 and part 3 coming up.